Start streaming. Okay, come on. Let's get me on screen. Any second now. I should probably edit the title, shouldn't I? Frack. Flat. Public. Done. Save. Oh shit, forgot to turn on monetization. On. Done. Turn that on. 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 Save. Okay. There we go. Wonder if that improves things. So, for those of you who are just joining, this is a new live stream. However, I seem to have a few technical difficulties. Doesn't exactly help that I'm sitting down, laying still for the most part, and my video seems kind of janky. 100% sure like how to fix it at the moment. I thought I did pretty well last time, but for some reason, it's not acting so good anymore. In fact, look at me touching my face right now. That was like, what, 30 seconds ago? Oh, hey, you guys. According to the preview video, I seem to be pretty laggy, and I was wondering if you guys could help me with this. I've been fumbling around in OBS. So any kind of feedback you can provide would be helpful. Yeah, I figured as much. Just bear with me for a second. I want this to be something good. Maybe I should just get rid of display capture. Not worry so much about that. Okay. Display capture. Yeah, that doesn't help whatsoever. Wait, is that how you do it? Yes, I want to remove display capture. Never realized just how stiff I was during these live streams until I started watching myself so carefully. Yeah, I keep getting things that say, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Yes, the Killer Pro, what is it? What do I do? I honestly have no clue. I live in California. Man, this is the worst feedback I've ever gotten from YouTube. Not you guys. Not you guys. In the chat, I mean. Yeah. It's like I gotta move around a lot in order to see what the motion is like. Like, see, where did that hand come from, for example? Man, 2021 streams are off to a bad start. This is what I get for not testing ahead of time. Even though I thought it worked pretty well last time. Video capture device. Audio capture device. Come on, let me see it. Hey, come back. Stop that. Okay, there we go. What's OBS camera? Did that do anything? What on earth? Why do I look so deformed? Oh my god, this is something out of a nightmare now. That was unnerving. Forgive me, guys. I feel like a total idiot right now. This lag is killing me. Very funny. Appreciate the patience. No. Studio mode? How do I sound right now? Because when I was doing a test stream and I had audio input capture on and mic/auxiliary, like turning down video settings, we're using a faster encoding preset. Okay, awesome. How would you like me to do that? How do you do that? Video format. That H1, yeah. See, that's what happened when I tried it before. Yeah, so I have zero idea how this happened, but when I turn one or the other off, I sound like one person. And again, I don't really know how that works. How do I sound now? Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. 54 seconds lag time? Seriously? It takes almost a full minute to answer one of your questions. I feel like an idiot right now. What am I doing wrong? Auto detect. What? Oh my god. I don't get it. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time because, you dedicated like this portion of time to, having me read this thing. And I'm trying to make sure that it's worth your time. I'm just glad that I'm not a super popular YouTuber. Otherwise, everyone in the chats would go crazy or something. Everyone would be offering advice, or they'd be like, hey, what's wrong with you? Didn't you prepare? It's like, no, I didn't prepare. Is that what you wanted to hear? Well, congratulations, because it's true. Anywho, what am I doing? Maybe if I say default color range? Ah! Yeah, I'm going to configure the video for this one. No, come on. Okay, yeah, that's a bit better. That looks weird. Saturation. Maybe it was the color range. Color space? Maybe I should have the color space be default too. Oh, not again. Why does it keep doing that? Stop changing the quality. By the way, if I'm not immediately if I'm not immediately replying to your comment, it's not only because there's a 54-second delay in which the video does something, but also because I'm in my studio and I can't see your comments at the moment, so please just bear with me. Oy, oy, oy. Broadcast settings? Broadcast settings. Is there a broadcast settings? Well, I'll just copy this at the moment. I'll let you know. Events. Oh, brother. Wait, what's this? Hold on a sec. Hold on a second. Wait, I think it's improving a little bit right now because while there is somewhat of a delay between my actions and what happens on camera, it's nowhere near as bad as before. But what about the audio? How's that? Am I off sync? I know you didn't come here to watch me, clean my nose with a tissue, but what can I say? My nose was irritating me. But seriously, how's the audio? Like, how's it syncing up with the video on screen? Well, since everyone is, off to do their own thing, I might as well go use the restroom or something. I don't know. This is easily one of the most embarrassing streams I've ever done. Maybe I'll edit this. Who knows? Or, I might launch again. We'll see. We'll see. Abandon their defenses. Slowly, gently, night unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Oh, well, if it's like 1 or 2 seconds delayed, then I know how to fix it. Properties. Advanced audio properties. Okay, how about now? Pardon me, I was taking my medication. Oh, it's more delayed. Just bear with me for a second. Again, I know how to fix it. It's all about, getting the balance right. There's a sync offset and input capture. Here, I'm going to try 300 milliseconds. Okay, how about now? What to do to die today at minute or two to two. A distinctly difficult thing to say, but harder still to do. We'll beat a tattoo at 20 to 2, a rat tat 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 2, and the dragon will come with the beat of the drum at minute or two to two today at minute or two to two. Oh, so I'm definitely getting close. Hello, Zam Kirby. So it's like a 1 second delay, is that what you mean? Well, I mean, Zam Kirby says I'm synced okay. So, like, take this for example. Just waiting for myself to get caught up here. Okay. Yeah, the snap test, or like, the clap test, is something that a lot of people do to test out their audio. Okay, so with all that out of the way, how about we let's get this show on the road. I feel like I've taken up enough of your time, doing all this other stuff. What's oh? Oh, yeah. So yeah, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for putting up with this. It's a little crazy. But strangely enough, I think I was able to fix it all. So, today's story is called Flatland. And as I mentioned in my post, it takes place in a world where all the characters are two-dimensional objects, and they all live in their two-dimensional world. And I wanted to see what kind of story this could be. So this is... Okay, here we go. Part 1. This world. Be patient, for the world is broad and wide. Flatland, Part 1. This world. 1. Of the nature of Flatland. I call our world Flatland not because we call it so, but to make its nature clearer to you, my happy readers who are privileged to live in this, who are privileged to live in space. Imagine a vast sheet of paper on which straight lines, triangles, squares, pentagons, hexagons, and other figures, instead of remaining fixed in their places, move freely about, on or in the surface, but without the power of rising above or sinking below it, very much like shadows, only hard and with luminous edges. And you will then have a pretty correct notion of my country and countrymen. Alas, a few years ago, I should have said my universe, but now my mind has been opened to higher views of things. In such a country, you will perceive at once that it is impossible that there should be anything of what you call a solid kind. But I dare say you will suppose that we could at least distinguish by sight the triangles, squares, and other figures moving about as I have described them. On the contrary, we could see nothing of the kind, not at least so as to distinguish one figure from another. Nothing was visible, nor could be visible to us, except straight lines. and the necessity of this I will speedily demonstrate. Place a penny on the middle of one of your tables in space, and lean it over. Look down upon it. It will appear a circle. But now, drawing back to the edge of the table, gradually lower your eye, thus bringing yourself more and more into the condition of the inhabitants of Flatland, and you will find the penny becoming more and more oval in your view. And at last, when you have placed your eye exactly on the edge of the table, so that you are, as it were, essentially a Flatland citizen, the penny will have then ceased to appear oval at all, and will become, so far as you can see, a straight line. The same thing would happen if you were to treat the same way a triangle or square or any other figure cut out of pasteboard. As soon as you look at it with your eye on the edge of the table, you will find that it ceases to appear to you a figure, and that it becomes in appearance a straight line. Take, for example, an equilateral triangle who represents with us a tradesman of the respectable class. Figure 1 represents the tradesman as you would see him while you were bending over from him above. And it's a picture of an upside-down triangle, in case you were wondering. Figures 2 and 3 represent the tradesman as you would see him in your eye were closed to that level, or all but on the level of the table. And if your eye were quite on the level of the table, and that is how we see him in Flatland, you would see nothing but a straight line. When I was in Spaceland, I heard that your sailors have very similar experiences while they traverse your seas and discern some distant island or coast lying on the horizon. The far-off land may have bays, forelands, angles in and out to any number and extent, yet at least you see none of these unless indeed your sun shines bright upon them, revealing the projections and retirements by means of light and shade. Nothing but a gray, unbroken line upon the water. Well, that is what we see when one of our triangular or other acquaintances comes towards us in Flatland. As there is neither sun with us, nor any light of such a kind as to make shadows, we have none of the helps to the sight you have in Spaceland. If our friend comes close to us, hang on, I'm going to make this window a bit bigger. Then zoom in. Lower the brightness a little bit. If our friend comes close to us, we see his lines become larger. If he leaves us, it becomes smaller. But he still looks like a straight line, be he a triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, circle, what you will. A straight line he looks, and nothing else. You may perhaps ask how, under these disadvantageous circumstances, we are able to distinguish our friends from one another, but the answer to this very natural question will be more fitly and easily given when I come to describe the inhabitants of Flatland. For the present, let me defer this subject and say a word or two about the climate and houses in our country. 2. Of the climate and houses of Flatland. As with you, so also with us, there are 4 points of the compass: north, south, east, and west. There being no sun nor other heavenly bodies, it is impossible for us to determine the north in the usual way. But we have a method of our own. By a law of nature with us, there is a constant attraction to the south, and although in temperate climates this is very slight, so that even a woman in reasonable health can journey several furlongs northward without much difficulty, yet the hampering effect of the southward attraction is quite sufficient to serve as a compass in most parts of our earth. Moreover, the rain, which falls at stated intervals, coming always from the north, is an additional assistance. And in the towns, we have the guidance of the houses, which of course have their side walls running for the most part north and south, so that the roofs may keep off the rain from the north. In the country, where there are no houses, the trunks of the trees serve as some sort of guide. Altogether, we have not so much difficulty as might be expected in determining our bearings. If possible, I'm going to try to read the whole book. It's a very short book. Yet, in our more temperate regions, in which the southward attraction is hardly felt, walking sometimes is a perfectly desolate plain, where there have been no houses nor trees to guide me. I have occasionally compelled to remain stationary for hours together, waiting till the rain came before continuing my journey. Something's caught in my throat. I have been occasionally compelled to remain stationary for hours together, waiting till the rain came before continuing my journey. On the weak and aged, and especially on delicate females, the force of attraction tells much more heavily than on the robust of the male sex, so that it is a point of breeding. If you met a lady in the street, always give to her the north side of the way. By no means an easy thing to do. Always at short notice. Always at short notice when you're in rude health, and in a climate where it is difficult to tell your north from your south. Windows there are none. Windows there are none. Sorry, this is a weird sentence. Windows there are none in our houses, for the light comes to us alike in our homes and out of them, by day and by night, equally at all times, in all places whence we know not. I was in old days, and our learned men, an interesting and oft investigated question: what is the origin of light? And the solution of it has been repeatedly attempted, with no other result than to crowd our lunatic asylums with the would-be solvers. Hence, after fruitless attempts to suppress such investigation indirectly by making them liable to a heavy tax, the legislature, in comparatively recent times, absolutely prohibited them. I alone in Flatland know now only too well the true solution of this mysterious problem. But my knowledge cannot be made intelligible to a single one of my countrymen, and I am mocked at. I, the sole possessor of the truths of space and of the theory of the introduction of light from the world of 3 dimensions, as if I were the maddest of the mad. But a truce to these painful digressions. Let me return to our houses. The most common form for the construction of a house is 5-sided or pentagonal, as in the annexed figure. The two northern sides ROF constitute the roof, and for the most part have no doors on the east. Have no doors. On the east is a small door for the women. On the west, a much larger one for men. On the south side or floor is usually doorless. I'm looking for something. page is this? Here, I'm gonna... So let's see, the most common... Yeah, I'm gonna start over here again. The most common form... The most common form for the construction of a house is five-sided or pentagonal, as in the annexed figure. The two northern sides, RO, OF, constitute the roof, and for the most part have no doors. On the east is a small door for the women. On the west, a much larger door for the men. The south side or floor is usually doorless. And, hang on, I'm gonna... And this is what the house looks like. If I could just sync it up right. Trying to lower it right now. All right. Square and triangular houses are not allowed, and for this reason, the angles of a square, and still more those of an equilateral triangle, being much more pointed than those of a pentagon, and the lines of inanimate objects, such as houses, being dimmer than the lines of men and women, it follows that there is no little danger lest the points of a square or triangular house residence might do serious injury to an inconsiderate or perhaps absent-minded traveler suddenly running against them, and therefore as early as the 11th century of our era, triangular houses were usually forbidden by law, the only exceptions being fortifications, powder magazines, barracks, and other state buildings, which is not desirable that the general public should approach without circumspection. At this period, square houses were still everywhere permitted, though discouraged by a special tax. But about 3 centuries afterwards, the law decided that in all towns containing a population above 10,000, the angle of a pentagon was the smallest house angle that could be allowed consistently with the public safety. The good sense of the community has seconded the efforts of the legislature. And now, even in the country, the pentagonal construction has superseded every other. It is only now and then, in some very remote and backward agricultural district, that an antiquarian may still discover a square house. 3. Concerning the inhabitants of Flatland. The greatest strength or breadth of a full-grown inhabitant of Flatland may be estimated at about 11 of your inches. 12 inches may be regarded as a maximum. Our women are straight lines. Our soldiers and lowest class of workmen are triangles with 2 equal sides, each about 11 inches long, and a base or third side so short, often not exceeding half an inch, that they form at their vertices a very sharp and formidable angle. Indeed, when their bases are of the most degraded type, not more than the 1/8 part of an inch in size, they can hardly be distinguished from straight lines or women. So extremely pointed are their vertices. With us, as with you, these triangles are distinguished from others by being called isosceles, and by this name I shall refer to them in the following pages. Our middle class consists of equilateral or equal-sided triangles. Our professional men and gentlemen are squares, to which class I myself belong, and five-sided figures or pentagons. Next above these come the nobility, of whom there are several degrees, beginning at six-sided figures or hexagons, and from thence rising in the number of their sides till they perceive the honorable title of polygonal or many-sided. Finally, when the number of the sides becomes so numerous, and the sides themselves so small, that the figure cannot be distinguished from a circle, he is included in the circular or priestly order, and this is the highest class of all. It is a law of nature with us that a male child shall have one more side than his father, so that each generation shall rise, as a rule, one step in the scale of development and nobility. Thus the son of a square is a pentagon, the son of a pentagon a hexagon, and so on. But this rule applies not always to the tradesmen, and still less often to the soldiers and to the workmen, who indeed can hardly be said to deserve the name of human figures, since they have not all their sides equal. With them before the law of nature does not hold, and the son of an isosceles, i.e. a triangle with two sides equal, remains isosceles still. Nevertheless, all hope is not shut out, even from the isosceles, that this posterity may ultimately rise above his degraded condition, for after a long series of military success or diligent and skillful labors, it is generally found that the more intelligent among the artisan and soldier classes manifest a slight increase in their third side or base and a shrinkage of two other sides. Intermarriages, arranged by the priests, between the sons and daughters of these more intellectual members of the lower class generally result in an offspring approximately still more to the type of equal-sided triangle. Rarely, in proportion to the vast number of isosceles births, is a genuine and certifiable equal-sided triangle produced from isosceles parents. And there's a little note right here. What need of a certificate? A Spaceland critic may ask. Is not the procreation of a square son a certificate from nature herself proving the equal-sidedness of the father? I reply that no lady of any position will marry an uncertified triangle. Square offspring has sometimes resulted from a slightly irregular triangle. But in almost every such case, the irregularity of the first generation is visited on the third, which either falls to attain the pentagonal rank or relapses to the triangular. Such a birth requires as its antecedents not only a series of carefully managed intermarriages, but also a long-continued exercise of frugality and self-control on the part of the would-be ancestors of the coming equilateral, and a patient, systematic, and continuous development of the isosceles intellect through many generations. The birth of the true equilateral triangle from isosceles parents is the subject of rejoicing in our country for many furlongs around. Oh, a Happy New Year, yeah. After a strict examination conducted by the Sanitary and Social Board, the infant, if certified as regular, is with solemn ceremonial admitted into the class of equilaterals. Wait, well, I kind of lost my place, sorry. The birth of a true equilateral triangle from isosceles parents is the subject of rejoicing in our countrymen for many furlongs round. After a strict examination conducted by the Sanitary and Social Board, the infant, if certified as regular, is with solemn ceremonial admitted into the class of equilaterals. He is then immediately taken from his proud yet sorrowing parents and adopted by some childless equilateral, who is bound by oath never to permit the child henceforth to enter his former home, or so much as look upon his relations again, for fear lest the freshly developed organism may, by force of unconscious imitation, fall back again into his hereditary level. The occasional emergence of an isosceles from the ranks of his self-born ancestors is welcome not only by the poor serfs themselves, as a gleam of light and hope shed upon the monotonous squalor of their existence, but also by the aristocracy at large, for all the higher classes are well aware that these rare phenomena, while they do little or nothing to vulgarize their own privileges, serve as a most useful barrier against revolution from below. Maybe a little, Killer Pro, maybe a little. Normally we save the talking for like after I'm done with a chapter or something like that. But, you know, we can take a break every now and then. Had the acute angled rabble been all, without exception, absolutely destitute of hope and of ambition, they might have found leaders in some of their many seditious outbreaks, so able as to render their superior numbers and strength too much even for the wisdom of the circles. But a wise ordinance of nature has decreed that in proportion as the working class increase in intelligence, knowledge, and all virtue, in that same proportion their acute angle, which makes them physically terrible, shall increase also and approximate to the harmless angle of the equilateral triangle. Thus is the most brutal and formidable of the soldier class, creatures almost on a level with women in their lack of intelligence. Ooh, that line did not age well. Jeez Louise. Yikes. Just to let you know, I don't condone that sentence whatsoever. Just bear with me. It is found that as they wax in the mental ability necessary to employ their tremendous penetrating power to advantage, so do they wane in the power of Oh my God. Okay, listen to this. It is found that as they wax in the mental ability necessary to employ their tremendous penetrating power to advantage, so do they wane in the power of penetration itself. Okay, so apparently shapes are sexist. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. How admirable is this law of compensation, how perfect a proof of the natural fitness and I may almost say, the divine origin of the aristocratic constitution of the states in Flatland. By judicious use of this law of nature, the polygons and circles are almost always able to stifle sedition in its very cradle. Taking advantage of the irrepressible and boundless hopefulness of the human mind. Art also comes to the aid of law and order. It is generally found possible, by a little artificial compression or expansion on the part of the state physicians, to make some of the more intelligent readers of a rebellion perfectly regular, and to admit them at once into the privileged classes. A much larger number, who are still below the standard, allured by the prospect of being ultimately ennobled, are induced to enter the state hospitals, where they are kept in honorable confinement for life. One or two alone of the more obstinate, foolish, and hopelessly irregular are led to execution. Then the wretched rabble of the isosceles, planless and leaderless, are either transfixed without resistance by the small body of their brethren whom the chief circle keeps in pay for emergencies of this kind, or else more often by means of jealousies and suspicions skillfully fomented among them by the circular party. They are stirred to mutual warfare and perish by one another's angles. No less than 120 rebellions are recorded in our annals, besides minor outbreaks numbered at 275, and they have all ended thus. Guys, this kind of took a turn, didn't it? I mean, besides the whole thing about women. Oh, and speak of the devil, the next chapter, or the next part is called Concerning the Women. Yeah, it did. How do I keep finding these unintentional dystopian societies? I promise you, this was not the intention. I just thought, oh, it's a book about shapes that live in a flat universe. What could possibly go wrong? Sorry, I'm just checking out what my feed is like. Okay, buckle your seatbelts. This part is called 4. Concerning the Women. If our highly pointed triangles of the soldier class are formidable, it may be readily inferred that far more formidable are our women. For if a soldier is a wedge, a woman is a needle, being, so to speak, all point, at least at the two extremities. Remember, because, women are straight lines. Add to this the power of making herself practically invisible at will, and you will perceive that a female in Flatland is a creature by no means to be trifled with. But here perhaps some of my younger readers. Approximately, yes. I mean, if I have to read more tomorrow, I'm down to do that too. I'll even put a reminder. But anyway. But here perhaps some of my younger readers may ask how a woman in Flatland can make herself invisible. This ought, I think, to be apparent without any explanation. However, a few words will make it clear to the most unreflecting. Place the needle on a table. Then with your eye on the level of the table, look at it sideways and you will see the whole length of it. But look at it endways and you see nothing but a point. It has become practically invisible. Just so is it with one of our women. When her side is turned toward us, we see her as a straight line. When the end containing her eye or mouth, I misread it. When the end containing her eye or mouth, for us these two organs are identical, is the first part that meets our eye. Then we see nothing but a highly lustrous point. But when the back is presented to our view, then, being only sublustrous, and indeed almost as dim as an inanimate object, her hinder extremity serves her as a kind of invisible cap. Yow. Okay, so they basically just said that this is how women work, apparently, in the world of Flatland. So imagine the needle. I don't really know, dude. It's like, usually the streams go on for like 2 to 3 hours, but depending on like how tired I am, or like, yeah, it's a number of circumstances. But I just end when I feel it's appropriate. And I don't want me to influence like when you should stop to do stuff. I mean, you can always, leave and come back and watch the live stream pre-recorded or whatever. I can't please everybody. So anyway, about the needle. So they're saying that they basically said that women are desirable for their private parts, the sharp point of the needle, and they're very undesirable for their intelligence, which is the blunt side of the needle. Yeah. Yikes. That's basically how women are in this universe, and I feel sorry for them. Oh, I am already liking this sentence. Sarcasm. The dangers to which we are exposed from our women must now be manifest to the meanest capacity in Spaceland. If even the angle of a respectable triangle in the middle class is not without its danger, if even the angle of a respectable triangle in the middle class is not without its dangers, if you run against a working man involves a gash, if collision with an officer of the military class necessitates a serious wound, if a mere touch from the vertex of a private soldier brings with it a danger of death, what can it be to run against a woman except absolute and immediate destruction? And when a woman is invisible or visible only as a dim sublustrous point, how difficult must it be even for the most cautious always to avoid collision? What? Did the author just say that women pretty much poke everything that moves or try to? Now, I mean, you can like bring topics of conversation if like I stop to address you guys really quickly for like a little thing that just said that. If that makes any kind of sense. Anyway, anyway, I guess I'll continue. Yeah, I'm going to continue now. Many are the enactments made at different times in different states of Flatland in order to minimize this peril, and in the southern and less temperate climates where the force of gravitation is greater, and human beings more liable to casual and involuntary motions, the laws concerning women are naturally much more stringent, but a general view of the code may be obtained from the following summary. 1. Every house shall have one entrance in the eastern side, for the use of females only, by which all females shall enter in a becoming and respectful manner, and not by the men's or western door. Oh, and there's a little note right here. When I was in Spaceland, I understood that some of your priestly circles have, in the same way, a separate entrance for villagers, farmers, and teachers of broad schools. Spectator, September 1884, page 1255, that they may approach in a becoming and respectful manner. Okay, number 2. No female shall walk in any public place without continually keeping up her peace cry under penalty of death. What the heck is a peace cry? Oh, for goodness sake. Definition. I obviously want the definition. It must be a peace cry. Like the word peace, like we come in peace, hyphen, cry, like you're crying at a wedding. So a peace cry. I can't seem to find a clear definition, so I'm just gonna speculate what it is. And again, it's not exactly... Oh, cool, happy early birthday. anyway, as I was saying, so it almost seems like these needles have two functions, or like two cries, I guess you could say. And I guess to them it's like, oh, it's a cry because, it's a female. So, like, when it enters a space, it. Wait. No female shall walk in any public place without continually keeping up her peace cry, under penalty of death. So, is a peace cry happy? So, so these women just cry all day, and if they don't, they die? Anyway, some more rules. Any female duly certified to be suffering from St. Vitus's dance fits, chronic cold accompanied by violent sneezing, or or any disease necessitating involuntary motions shall be instantly destroyed. What is this? The Handmaid's Tale 2D edition? In some of the states, there is an additional law forbidding females under penalty of death from walking or standing in any public place without moving their backs constantly from left to right so as to indicate their presence to those behind them. In other words, she must show her butt to everyone. Others oblige a woman when traveling to be followed by one of her sons or servants or by her husband. Others confine women altogether to their houses except during the religious festivals. But it has been found by the wisest of our circles or statesmen that the multiplication of restrictions on females tends not only to the debilitation and diminution of the race, but also to the extent of domestic murders to such an extent that a state loses more than it gains by a too prohibitive code. So they said, okay, it's like, don't worry, we're not being too strict. It's like, are you though? Are you? For whenever the temper of the women is thus exasperated by confinement at home or hampering regulations abroad, they are apt to vent their spleen upon their husband and children. Probably so, Killer Pro. Probably so. So did I even read this right? It says, for whatever the temper of the woman is thus exasperated by confinement at home or hampering regulations abroad, they are apt to vent their spleen upon their husbands and children. When they say vent their spleen, is that figurative or literal? Like, figurative, like they puke their guts upon their husbands and children? Or literal, as in they take out their spleen and throw it at their husbands and children? Like, I really don't know. And in the less temperate climates, the whole male population of a village has been sometimes destroyed in 1 or 2 hours of simultaneous female outbreak. Hence the 3 laws mentioned above suffice for the better regulated states, and may be accepted as a rough exemplification of our female code. After all, our principal safeguard is found not in legislature, but in the interests of the women themselves. For although they can inflict instantaneous death by a retrograde movement, yet unless they can at once disengage their stinging extremity from the struggling body of their victim, their own frail bodies are liable to be shattered. So, yeah, again, they've got sharp points, but they're sensitive because they're female. The power of fashion is also on our side, of course. What, you thought this was going to be a story about women who weren't interested in fashion? What were you expecting? Something from the 21st century? The power of fashion is also on our side. I pointed out that in some less civilized states, no female is suffered to stand in any public place without swaying her back from left to right. Again, she's showing off her butt. This practice has been universal among ladies of many pretensions to breeding in all well-governed states, as far back as the memory of figures can reach. It is considered a disgrace to any state that legislation should have to enforce what ought to be, and is in every respectable female a natural instinct. So you're telling me that these are essentially, like, I guess this whole, like, shaking back and forth is, and, well, essentially shaking their butts is like some kind of a mating dance. And they're trying to get into their heads that, all females need to do this like it comes naturally. Oh, it gets even better. The rhythmical and, if I may say so, well-modulated undulation of the back of our ladies of circular rank is envied and imitated by the wife of a common equilateral, who can achieve nothing beyond a mere monotonous swing, like the ticking of a pendulum. And the regular tick of the equilateral is no less admired and copied by the wife of the progressive and aspiring isosceles, in the female of whose family no back motion of any kind has become as yet a necessity of life. Hence, in every family of position and consideration, back motion is as prevalent as time itself, and the husbands and sons in these households enjoy immunity, at least from invisible attacks. Not that it must be for a moment supposed that our women are destitute of affection, but unfortunately the passion of the moment predominates in the frail sex over every other consideration. Oh, hello, El Richo 390. How are you? Have you ever been on this stream before? Yeah, please forgive me, El Richo. When so many people come and go from these live streams, they all start to blend together, and that's on me. That's no one else's fault. So we're currently in the middle of a live reading for the book Flatland, and guy boy who told us his life. That could be a lot of books. Was it like a scary book? Because it may have been one of the Lovecraft books. How do I look right now? Hang on. No, the guy in the chat with the wife, etc. Oh. Oh, that. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Sorry, I thought you were talking about a book. But anyway, right now we're reading a book called Flatland, and it's about a world in which two-dimensional objects live. So imagine, shapes on a flat piece of paper. They see each other, from their perspective, they see each other as a certain shape. So you pretty much look like a straight line in this universe. You can't really see the three-dimensionality of the object unless they actually have more sides to them. Hey, guys, let's not make this. Let's not worry about that kind of thing, okay? So anyway, so it sounded like an intriguing premise, but the more we read, the more we realized how tyrannical this world is, especially how it treats its females. Anyway, I'll read this part. Not that it must be for a moment supposed that our women are destitute of affection, but unfortunately the passion of the moment predominates in the frail sex over every other consideration. This is, of course, a necessity arising from their unfortunate conformation. For as they have no pretensions to an angle, being inferior in this respect to the very lowest of the isosceles, they are consequently wholly devoid of brain power, and have neither reflection, judgment, nor forethought, and hardly any memory. I honestly don't know who dislikes women more, the characters in this story or the author. That's starting to seem more and more. I mean, hey. H.P. Lovecraft wasn't a fan of other races beside his own. Not that I'm saying this is okay. I'm just stating that, a lot of old authors have old-fashioned attitudes. Anyway, hence, in their fits of fury, they remember no claims and recognize no distinctions. I have actually known a case where a woman has exterminated her whole household, and half an hour afterward, when her rage was over and the fragments swept away, has asked what has become of her husband and her children. No, yeah, that's true, Sam Kirby, about, naming the cat that. That's why I read a version of The Rats in the Wall where instead of being named that, he was called Black Tom. I'm starting to realize that this current live stream is starting to become less of a live read and more of a old authors say the darndest things. That's pretty much what this is right now. It's no longer a regular live read. It's a react and critique. And it kind of shows how, we've grown in terms of how we treat people. Or at least try to. I mean, yeah, there are tons and tons of problems that exist today. But, yeah. Anyway, so basically there was a woman, a straight line, who wiped out her entire family in a fit of rage. But when she finally came to, she has no recollection of what happened. They basically say that, they're savages. So I think it's good that I'm reading this so we can bring these sort of issues to light to show, again, how we've grown as individuals. Obviously, when a woman is not to be irritated as long as she is in a position where she can turn around. When you have them in their apartments, which are constructed with a view to denying them that power, you can say and do what you like, for they are then wholly impotent for mischief, and will not remember a few minutes, hence the incident for which they may be at this moment threatening you with death, nor the promises which you may have found it necessary to make in order to pacify their fury. So the women... Oh, hi. Hello, Shannon Nolan. You caught us at a very weird time. Welcome to this week's edition, this weekend's edition of Old Authors Say the Darndest Things. We're currently reading a book called Flatland, and it takes place in a two-dimensional world, and all the different shapes kind of see each other in a two-dimensional way. But apparently, the women in this universe are either not smart, they're amorous, or they're savage. Which I wouldn't want to live in this world. And they basically just said that as long as women are kept in houses, let's see. You can say and do what you like, for they are then wholly impotent for mischief, and will not remember a few minutes, hence the incident for which they may be at this moment threatening you with death, nor the promises which you may have found it necessary to make to make in order to pacify their fury. Oh yeah, and they're forgetful. They're very forgetful. Okay. So, as I was saying, I think, on the whole, we get on pretty smoothly in our domestic relations, except in the lower strata of the military classes. There, the want of tact and discretion on the part of the husbands produces, at times, indescribable disasters, relying too much on the offensive weapons of their acute angles instead of the defensive organs of good sense and sensible simulations. These reckless creatures too often neglect the prescribed construction of the woman's apartments, or irritate their wives by ill-advised expressions out of doors, which they refuse immediately to retract. Moreover, a blunt and stolid regard, or is it stolid? Whatever. Regard for literal truth indisposes them to make those lavish promises by which the more judicious circle can in a moment pacify his consort. The result is massacre, not however without its advantages, as it eliminates the more brutal and troublesome of the isosceles. And by many of our circles the destructiveness of the thinner sex is regarded as one among many providential arrangements for suppressing redundant population and nipping revolution in the bud. Yet even in our best regulated and most approximately circular families, I cannot say that the ideal of family life is so high as with you in Spaceland. There is peace insofar as the absence of slaughter may be called by that name, but there is necessarily little harmony of tastes or pursuits, and the cautious wisdom of the circles has ensured safely at the cost of domestic comfort. In every circular or polygonal household, it has been a habit from time immemorial, and has now become a kind of instinct among the women of our higher classes, that the mothers and daughters should constantly keep their eyes and mouths toward their husbands and his male friends, and for a lady in a family of distinction to turn her back upon her husband would be regarded as a kind of portent involving loss of status. But I shall soon show this custom, though it has the advantages of safety, is not without its disadvantages. Gee, I wonder what those disadvantages are. So basically, women constantly need to have their attention toward their husbands and their husbands' friends, and if they have their back to them, it lowers the guy's status. It's never about the woman, it's always about the guy. And come to think of it, I think this might be the longest section of the book so far. All these other things about, like, the different shapes that there are and whatnot, or like how the world works, those were pretty short chapters. But here, this whole thing about women, it's like, it's the longest chapter so far. I've heard of console wars, yes. Anyway, in the house of the working man or respectable tradesman, where the wife is allowed to turn her back upon her husband while pursuing her household avocations, cleaning the house, there are at least intervals of quiet, when the wife is neither seen nor heard, except for the humming sound of the continuous peace cry. Oh, a peace cry is a kind of singing. Okay. But in the homes of the upper class, there is too often no peace. There the voluble mouth and bright penetrating eye are ever directed towards the master of the household, and light itself is not more persistent than the steam of feminine discourse. The tact and skill which suffice to avert a woman's sting are unequal to the task of stopping a woman's mouth. And as the wife has absolutely nothing to say and absolutely no constraint of wit, sense, or conscience to prevent her from saying it, not a few cynics have found to aver that they prefer the danger of the death-dealing but inaudible sting of the safe sonorousness of a woman's other end. Wait, what happened? I don't know, Master of Doom. Anyway. Hold on, let me check something. Fine. No. Okay, now we're getting to... Just listen to this. To my readers in Spaceland, that's you, the condition of our women may seem truly deplorable, you think? And so indeed it is. A male of the lowest type of the isosceles may look forward to some improvement of his angle, and to the ultimate elevation of the whole of his degraded caste, but no woman can entertain such hopes for her sex. Once a woman, always a woman is a decree of nature, and the very laws of evolution seem suspended in her disfavor. Yet at least we can admire the wise prearrangement which has ordained that, as they have no hopes, so they shall have no memory to recall, and no forethought to anticipate, the miseries and humiliations which, at once a necessity of their existence and the basis of the constitution of Flatland. I don't know how many chapters there are. Hold on. This is chapter 5, and there are, I guess, 23? So yeah, I might have to read more tomorrow. But, although... I mean, there comes a lot of old pieces of work have a lot of old beliefs, hence this whole sexist attitude towards women in this book. Now, when I've experienced these moments, they've usually lasted for like a second or so, like a few sentences, maybe a paragraph at most. But with this, it's like been virtually nonstop anti-woman. And I don't know, it's making me a little uncomfortable. I mean, I wanted to see, you know, like, yeah, I wanted to, you know, kind of continue to see, like, how bad it would get to an extent, but the fact that it's still going. Yeah, is it only going to talk about the women in this book? Pardon me, I'm checking something. Are you joking? I'm reading the Wikipedia. It says here, the first half of the story goes through the practicalities of existing in a two-dimensional universe, as well as a history leading up to the year 1999, on the eve of the third millennium. So basically, they're saying that they go over these rules for the first half of the entire book, including what appears to be lots of mentions about how these women behave or should behave, and the plot only begins to get rolling halfway through the book? I mean, the plot summary isn't even doesn't even half describe only of those rules. It just says the first half of the story goes through the practicalities of existing in a two-dimensional universe, as well as the history leading up to the year 1999 on the eve of the third millennium. That last sentence is the last sentence in the first paragraph. There's a lot more that happens after that. Hold on, I'm going to check something. Sorry, I'm just looking up a bunch of information about Flatland, and there have actually been two movie adaptations, and one could only hope that it's nowhere near as sexist. Like I'm looking at these Google search results, and it says, I read it recently, great short read, extremely sexist, but I guess it's a book of its time. Got me thinking hard about higher dimensions for a while until my head started hurting. Read the article linked above. article. What article? It says to look at the article, but I can't find it. And what was the name of this dude again? The guy who wrote it? Flatland author. Edwin Abbott Abbott. His middle and last name are the same? Hold on. So Edwin Abbott Abbott. Hold on, I'm reading something about women's suffrage and Abbott. Listen to this. For modern-day audiences, this may be a painful read, but Abbott's portrayal of women in the book was intended as parody of Victorian customs that he himself deplored. In fact, he was a fierce supporter of women's rights. As documented in an appendix on his life and work, he was active in the women's suffrage movement and worked tirelessly in support of the rights of women to an education. So you guys just hear that? So apparently Edwin Abbott Abbott was a strong supporter of women's rights, and the only reason why the women in this book are portrayed as such is because they're an exaggeration of views about women that he does not share. Sorry, getting rid of a hangnail. Okay, reading that, it puts everything in a whole different light. I mean, think about it. The English language has evolved over time, and when was this book even released? Flatland. Ah. Okay. The book was published in 1884. So it was definitely during Victorian times. So anyway, about the English language. Over time, the English language has evolved, and things that might be considered humorous then are different now. So back then, it wasn't sexist. He was trying to show women. He was doing it for satirical purposes. It's like, how can we make a woman in the worst way possible? And so he made this. So that really does put things in a much different light. I feel like that kind of warning should be placed on the cover of every copy of the book. You know, like, warning, the following may contain sexist, may seem like sexist statements. However, okay, so yeah, I'm glad that you guys are reacting very positively to this new discovery. I felt that it was really important to stop because I felt like I was making everybody uncomfortable by continuing reading this. I mean, heck, I was uncomfortable too. That's why I figured it was important to, like, look this stuff up. And what's it? American Scientist. That's the name of the website that published that article that mentioned that thing. Here, I'll be right back. Just let this stuff, just digest this newfound information. Chat amongst yourselves if you want. Okay, I'm back. Sorry if this squeaks. That changed my whole look on the thing? Yeah, bro. John, I don't feel comfortable with it, so I'm gonna go. Okay, then go. Bye. Bye. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, hey, hey. Let's not start a fight here. Yeah, yeah, no. I want this to be a very civil, I want this to be, a very civil situation, I don't want there to be any kind of conflict. Like, if there are some genuine concerns, by all means, let me know in the chat below, but, saying these kinds of things. No, I'm trying to figure out how to best explain this. It was unnecessary to say that we won't miss him, because it makes the killer pro it makes the killer pro right there feel unwelcome in the group. And while I know he can be a bit talkative, he's also, really enjoying the content. And I've been saying, like we'll discuss a lot more like at the end of a chapter, or if I feel it's appropriate to stop based on what I just read, and I would interact with all of you in that way. But I don't want anyone to feel ashamed for who they are unless they're actually morally deplorable. Like if they're saying hateful things about, women or a certain race or things like that. Yeah, El Richo, that isn't helping. You do realize that everything you type is going to appear like whenever someone watches the live stream, right? Like pre-record, like this is all being recorded and people can go back and watch this stuff and they can watch the chat. So they're going to see all of your actions, they're going to see all of Sam Kirby's actions, all of the Killer Pro's actions, everybody. I mean, he himself would probably want to go, check out this thing and see what people have said after he left. And now he's going to read what you just said. My point exactly. I don't want anyone to feel deplorable. I don't want anyone feeling bad about themselves. And honestly, it's kind of disheartening that this is happening right now. Oh, fuck. I don't want you to be down on yourself, Killer Pro. I really don't. Because I'm trying to make an environment which is, happy and welcoming for everyone, and I don't want anyone to have, those kinds of thoughts, during these kinds of streams, because this is supposed to be an escape from all of that. And if we do come into conflict with, the sexist things that we've discovered in this book, we try to we don't freak out over it. We try to have a discussion over it, and we look deeper into why the book was acting as such. And just as I suspected, or I figured it was wise to delve deeper into like why he was acting as such, and lo and behold, it turns out the author is like super pro women, and the reason why he wrote all the characters in this fashion was because he was making exaggerations of what, most people see women as. So it's not his views per se, but how others view women instead. So any kind of conflict that does arise from whatever live stream that we come across, it it should be a moment of, escapism, and it should be, all. I can't tell what that says, Killer Pro. It says I ain't at fault. Is that Are you saying you aren't at fault, or are you saying it ain't your fault? I'm confused. I certainly hope it wasn't. I appreciate Killer Pro. And again, if there's any kind of conflict, we should, discuss this sort of thing. The last thing I want is to have anyone in this chat feel uncomfortable. Yeah, Zam Kirby's right. Yeah, I'm definitely with Sam Kirby on this one. Thanks for thanks for being thanks for doing that. Yeah, I really don't like conflict happening. Like, discussing conflict is one thing, but having the conflict come from people having an argument or a disagreement or a fight. Yeah. Don't worry about it so much. Let's see what we can do. Anyway, I'll read up to a certain point and then we'll take a break. Or, I'll do more live streaming tomorrow. Oh, and here's an interesting part. 5 are methods of recognizing one another. So this will be hopefully a much better change of pace. So let's check it out. 5 of our methods of recognizing one another. You who are blessed with shade as well as light. You who are gifted with 2 eyes, endowed with a knowledge of perspective, and charmed with the enjoyment of various colors. You who can actually see an angle and contemplate the complete circumference of a circle in the happy region of the 3 dimensions. How shall I make clear to you the extreme difficulty which we in Flatland experience in recognizing one another's configurations? Recall what I told you before. All things in Flatland, animate or inanimate, no matter what their form, present to our view the same, or nearly the same, appearance. And here's another visual thing, viz., that of a straight line. How then can one be distinguished from another where all appear the same? The answer is threefold. The first means of recognition is the sense of hearing, which with us is far more highly developed than with you, and which enables us not only to distinguish by the voice of our personal friends, but even to discriminate between different classes, at least so far as concerns the 3 lowest orders, the equilateral, the square, and the pentagon. For the isosceles I take no account. But as we descend in the social scale, the process of discriminating and being discriminated by hearing increases in difficulty, partly because voices are assimilated, partly because the faculty of voice discrimination is a plebeian virtue not much developed among the aristocracy. And wherever there is any danger of imposture, we cannot trust to this method. Amongst our lowest orders, the vocal organs are developed to a degree more than correspondent with those of hearing, so that an isosceles can easily feign the voice of a polygon, and with some training, that of a circle himself. A second method is therefore more commonly resorted to. Feeling is, among our women and lower classes. About our upper classes I shall speak presently. About our upper classes I shall speak presently. The principal test of recognition, at all events between strangers, and when the question is not as to the individual, but as to the class. What therefore introduction is among the higher classes in Spaceland, that the process of feeling is with us. Permit me to ask you to feel and be felt by my friend Mr. So-and-so, is still among the more old-fashioned of our country gentlemen in districts remote from towns, the customary formula for a Flatland introduction. But in the towns and among men of business, the words "be felt by" are omitted, and the sentence is abbreviated to "let me ask you to feel Mr. So-and-so." Although it is assumed, of course, that the feeling is to be reciprocal. Among our still more modern and dashing young gentlemen, who are extremely averse to superfluous effort and supremely indifferent to the purity of their native language, the formula is still further curtailed by the use of "to feel" in a technical sense, meaning to recommend for the purposes of feeling and being felt. And this moment the slang of polite or fast society in the upper classes sanctions such as barbarism as "Mr. Smith, permit me to feel you, Mr. Jones." Let not my reader, however, suppose that feeling is with us the tedious process that it would be with you, or that we would find it necessary to feel right around all the sides of every individual before we determine the class to which he belongs. Long practice and training, begun in the schools and continued in the experience of daily life, enable us to discriminate at once by these sense of touch between the angles of equal-sided triangle, square, and pentagon. And I need not say that the brainless vertex of an acute-angled isosceles is obvious to the dullest touch. It is therefore not necessary, as a rule, to do more than feel a single angle of any individual. And this, once ascertained, tells us the class of the person whom we are addressing, unless indeed he belongs to the higher sections of the nobility. There the difficulty is much greater. Even a Master of Arts in our University of Wentbridge. They have a university and it has a name? Even a Master of Arts in our University of Wentbridge has been known to confuse a 10-sided with a 12-sided polygon, and there is hardly a doctor of science in or out of that famous university who can pretend to decide promptly and hesitatingly between a 20-sided and 24-sided member of the aristocracy. Those of my readers who recall the extracts I gave them above from the legislative code concerning women will readily perceive that the process of introduction by contact requires some care and discretion. Otherwise the angles might inflict on the unwary feeler irreparable injury. It is essential for the safety of the feeler that the felt should stand perfectly still. A start, a fidgety shifting of the position, yes, even a violent sneeze, has been known before now to prove fatal to the incautious. A start, fidgety shifting of the position, yes, even a violent sneeze, has been known before to prove fatal to the incautious, and to nip in the bud many a promising friendship. Especially is this true among the lower classes of the triangles. With them, the eye is situated so far from the vertex that they can scarcely take cognizance of what goes on in that extremity of their frame. They are moreover of a rough, coarse nature, not sensitive to the delicate touch of the highly organized polygon. What wonder, then, if an involuntary toss of the head has ere now deprived the state of a valuable life? I have heard that my excellent grandfather, one of the least irregular of his unhappy isosceles class, who indeed obtained shortly before his decease 4 out of 7 votes from the Sanitary and Social Board for passing him into the class of the equal-sided, often deplored with a tear that his venerable eye a miscarriage of this kind, which has occurred to his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, a respectable working man with an angle or brain of 59 degrees and 59 degrees 30 feet. According to his account, my unfortunate ancestor, being afflicted with rheumatism, and in the act of being felt by a polygon, by one sudden start, accidentally transfixed the great man through the diagonal, and therefore partly in consequence of his long imprisonment and degradation, and partly because of the moral shock which pervaded the whole of my ancestor's relations, threw back our family a degree and a half in their ascent towards better things. The result was that in the next generation the family brain was registered at only 58 degrees, and not till the lapse of 5 generations was the lost ground recovered, the full 60 degrees attained, and the ascent from the isosceles finally achieved, and all this series of calamities from one little accident in the process of feeling. At this point, I think I hear some of my better educated readers exclaim, "How could you in Flatland know anything about angles and degrees or minutes? We can see an angle because we live in the region of space. We can see an angle because we live in the region of space. In the region of space can see because we in the region of space can see 2 straight lines inclined to one another. But you who can see nothing but one straight line at a time, or at all events only a number of bits of straight lines all in one straight line, how can you ever discern any angle, and much less register angles of different sizes? I answer that though we cannot see angles, we can infer them, and this is with great precision. Our sense of touch, simulated by necessity and developed by long training, enables us to distinguish angles far more accurately than your sense of sight, when unaided by a rule or measure of angles. Nor must I omit to explain that we have great natural helps. It is with us a law of nature that the brain of the isosceles class shall begin at half a degree, or 30 minutes, and shall increase, if it increases at all, by half a degree in every generation, until the goal of 60 degrees is reached, when the condition of serfdom is quitted, and the freedom enters the class of regulars. Consequently, nature herself supplies us with an ascending scale of alphabet of angles for half a degree up to 60 degrees, specimens of which are placed in every elementary school throughout the land, owing to occasional retrogressions, still more frequent moral and intellectual stagnation, and to the extraordinary fecundity of the criminal and vagabond classes. There is always a vast superfluity of individuals of the half-degree and single-degree class, and a fair abundance of specimens up to 10 degrees. These are absolutely destitute of civic rights, and a great number of them, not having even intelligence enough for the purposes of warfare, are devoted by the states to the service of education. Fettered immovably so as to remove all possibility of danger, they are placed in the classrooms of our infant schools, and they are utilized by the Board of Education for the purpose of imparting to the offspring of the middle classes that tact and intelligence of which these wretched creatures themselves are utterly devoid. In some states, the specimens are occasionally fed and suffer to exist for several years, but in the more temperate and better regulated regions, it is found in the long run more advantageous for the educational interests of the young to disperse with food and to renew the specimens every month, which is about the average duration of the foodless existence of the criminal class. In the cheaper schools, what is gained by the longer existence of the specimens is lost, partly in the expenditure for food, and partly in the diminished accuracy of the angles, which are impaired after a few weeks of constant feeling. Nor must we forget to add, in enumerating the advantages of the more expensive system, that it tends, though slightly yet perceptibly, to the diminution of the redundant isosceles population, an object which every statesman Flatland constantly keeps in view. On the whole, therefore, although I am not ignorant that, in many popular elected school boards, there is a reaction in favor of the cheap systems, as it is called, I am myself disposed to think that this is one of the many cases in which expense is the truest economy. I think we're getting technical now. But I must not allow questions of school board politics to divert me from my subject. Enough has been said, I trust, to show that recognition by feeling is not so tedious or indecisive a process as might have been supposed, and it is obviously more trustworthy than recognition by hearing. Still there remains, as has been pointed out above, the objection that this method is not without danger. For this reason, many in the middle and lower classes, and all without exception in the polygonal and circular orders, prefer a third method, the description of which shall be reserved for the next section. Six, of recognition by sight. I am about to appear very inconsistent. In previous sections, I have said that all figures in Flatland present the appearance of a straight line, and it was added or implied that it is consequentially impossible to distinguish by the visual organ between individuals of different classes. Yet now I am about to explain to my Spaceland critics how we are able to recognize one another by the sense of sight. If however, the reader will take the trouble to refer to the passage in which recognition by feeling is stated to be universal, he will find this qualification among the lower classes. It is only among the higher classes and in our more temperate climates that sight recognition is practiced. That this power exists in many regions and for any classes is the result of fog, which prevails during the greater part of the year in all parts save the torrid zones. That which is with you in Spaceland, an unmixed evil, blotting out the landscape, depressing the spirits, and enfeebling the health, is by us recognized as a blessing scarcely inferior to air itself, and as the nurse of arts and parent of sciences. But let me explain my meaning without further eulogies on this beneficent element. If fog were non-existent, all lines would appear equally and indistinguishably clear, and this is actually the case in those unhappy countries in which the atmosphere is perfectly dry and transparent. But wherever there is a rich supply of fog, objects that are at a distance, say of 3 feet, are appreciably dimmer than those at a distance of 2 feet 11 inches. And the result is that by careful and constant experimental observation of comparative dimness and clearness, we are enabled to infer with great exactness the configuration of the object observed. An instance will do more than a volume of generalities to make my meaning clear. Suppose I see two individuals approaching whose rank I wish to ascertain. They are, we will suppose, a merchant and a physician, or in other words, an equilateral triangle and a pentagon. How am I going to distinguish them? Let's see, this is 41, okay. It is obvious to every child in Spaceland who has touched the threshold of geometrical studies that if I can bring my eye so that its glance may bisect an angle, A, of the approaching stranger, my view will lie as if it were evenly between his two sides that are next to me, visual CA and CB. Oh wow, this is confusing as hell. Like these are, hang on. Where is the live stream? Okay, here we go. Oh, good night. Good night. Sorry for not replying. Okay, sorry for not checking out your chat. I was in the middle of the story and I made the decision to, cover everything, which was clearly not a smart idea to do. Yeah, good night, everyone. I mean, the people who left, that is. Hang on, let me check something. I think I'm actually gonna call it a night as well, because I'm gonna start part 6 over again because it's involved and I don't feel like I have the energy enough to explain it all as it is. So please forgive me for that. So I want to thank everyone who attended this stream. It was kind of a weird stream, and I'm going to make sure that, it's going to be as normal as possible tomorrow. So thank you all for attending, and, we'll make this much better tomorrow, I promise.